Hi, it's Caleb here at homeschool-curriculum.org. And in the last video, we talked about, should I homeschool or is homeschooling right for me? Well, this question, or the question for this video, is how do I begin homeschooling? Now, there's some obvious things you have to start with. The first of which is just figure out what the requirements are in your area. What's the legal requirement? That generally means you call your school or you call your school district's office and you find out. In other countries, I'm not exactly sure, so you have to call those schools too. But generally, homeschooling is legal in every state in the United States. You just have to call your local school district and find out what's needed. And they'll tell you what needs to be set up. Because every state is about the same with a little bit of differences. So you want to find out specifically there. There are websites too you could check, but verify for your specific school district. When you verify about homeschooling and how do I start, you might also want to ask the question is what is available to me as a homeschooler? Can my child participate in the sports and the extracurricular activities? Could they participate in the field trips? What are some of the resources that the school has available in which your child could still participate? Now, that's the easy stuff about beginning or starting homeschooling, is just to figure out what the bureaucracy wants from you. But really, the harder part is thinking about what you want from you. And there are a couple of questions that I think you need to consider at this point. You have to consider them. The first one is to figure out and to answer the question is I'm going to look at my notes here. What do I believe to be the purpose of a childhood education? What do I believe to be the purpose of a childhood education? If you think about that for a bit, it means so much. And you have to start writing things down because at first you might say, I think the purpose of a childhood education is just so they can learn the 3 R's, the reading, writing, and arithmetic. Maybe, though, some people might say the purpose of a childhood education is to be well-rounded. Maybe there is art, music, sports. Maybe there are other things involved in a childhood education. What about being ready for adulthood? And one of the major criticisms or common criticisms people have of schooling, public schooling these days, is that it doesn't even teach kids how to balance a checkbook, manage a household budget. And is that something you think that should be part of a childhood education? Take some time right now to make a list of what you think. Pause the video, make a list of what you think to be the purpose of a childhood education. Now, for the second question, look at my notes again, is thinking about as you start homeschooling and you say, I know I want to homeschool. I know what the childhood education looks like to me. And then to go along and say, what are the fundamentals of a good education, of a solid education? And this is kind of stepping back from, I have my purpose, but what if I want a solid education? What are the fundamentals of it? At the end of this education, my child will know how to write complete essays. They'll be able to write short stories. They'll be able to express themselves cogently in public speaking or in the written word. They'll be able to read. They'll have read great works of literature. Or maybe that's not important to you. Maybe they'll be able to negotiate well. Maybe they'll be able to be strong with math and science. Maybe they'll be able to explain the natural wonders that come up in earth science. Whatever you think to be the fundamentals are of a solid education, take some time now, pause the video, and write those down. As you think about those fundamentals of education and what the purposes of a child's education, now we really get to get a little bit short-term or closer in on where you begin with your homeschooling. And just think first about if we have intention towards the end, if that informs our actions today. Think now, if you were to be successful with your homeschooling, what are the 3 results you would have? That could be 5 results, it could be 1 result, it could be 2. The number doesn't really matter. But if you were going to be successful with homeschooling, what are the 3 results you think you would achieve with your homeschooling? Don't worry about the time horizon. You could say if you want to look, till your child's 18, or if you want to just look in the next year, it doesn't really matter. What I'm trying to establish here is having a vision of what results, of what success will look like. And if you can define that, then you've already started down this path. Take a few seconds now, pause the video, and write down what the 3 results you would have if you were successful with homeschooling. Next question. Next question is about what is my child's priority right now? And this is really mapping into saying, Well, you've got a point of view about what you think education should be, what you think makes for success, what you think is needed in education. Yet let's consider the perspective of your child. And what is important? What is it that your child needs right now? Do they need, for instance, with younger children, do they need more playtime? Do they need more creativity? Do they need more exposure to the outdoors? Or for middle-aged children, maybe they need more exposure to a wider range of experiences. And older children, they may actually need in-depth exposure to specific situations or experiences that they're really interested, hyper interested in. But what is it that you think is your child's priority right now? Take a couple seconds, give another 20 seconds, whatever you need. Pause the video and just write down what is your child's priority right now. Now, we're going to move on here. I got to look at my notes again. As you get into homeschooling, the next question or the next thought is that we start off, you got a kind of a clear picture, you have a clear picture about what it is you want to achieve, what it is you think your child needs to achieve. The next thing to do when you start is don't try to boil the ocean. Let's have some short goals, just very short goals, because if this is your first step out, it's like running. If you start running, you're not going to go and start with a half marathon or a marathon. You might, if you haven't ran in a while, you might just go for a walk, and it might be a 20 or 30 minute walk. And from there, you might say, okay, I can go, more times per week or whatever. You're going to ramp up your frequency. But the first step is quite possibly as you switch from whatever your child's situation was to homeschooling, you need to think about acclimating that child to there's a new routine, where actually some parents will say to break them of that old routine, and it's called deschooling. So when you break from that old routine, it takes time just to say, oh, I don't have to leave the house at whatever time in the morning, or, oh, we don't have to rush home to pick up a child or do these things. And we don't really know what our day is going to be like at first, and just get comfortable with that, because that routine or lack of routine is part of that new structure. And how many people live their lives is that they don't have to go by those schedules and routines. They have different ones with which we may not be familiar. And that's exactly what's happening to your child as you start homeschooling. Next thing is, don't try to do too much at first. And don't try and say, look, we're going to sit down and get into everything we can. It's okay to just ease into things. And you may have seen this as you watch different documentaries, you read different things. One of the things we have, even when we try in our own lives, say we try to diet, to cut everything out at one time, we are never successful with that. We have to ease into it, start to adjust our habits little by little. So as you've deschooled or broken that routine that you've had with your child, is think about what you could take then to really break them or to bring them into these activities one by one. Hey, what if we did a little bit more reading? I want to start writing right now. Or what do you say we go and try this program at the local library or the museum? Or just trying little things here, and they build on each other sequentially. Remember that as your kids go into school, public schools or other institutions, they don't start right with everything landing on top of them. And you watch the first couple of weeks, every back to school year, kids are getting acclimated, and the teacher's saying, okay, we're getting them ready to go again. And we're always scratching our heads saying, well, gosh, why aren't we moving already? Teachers, generally, they understand it. It takes a little bit of time to get into the swing of things. While you're doing that, though, keep your antenna up, keep your eyes out, take a look for where your child might really enjoy some areas, and find those success and enjoyment areas and do more of those. Because as you do more of those things that your child enjoys doing, you can then thread in the stuff that you want to do too. Remember what you think are the fundamentals of good education, but by wrapping them or putting the wrapper of what your child wants to do around the activities or the knowledge you think they need to have, it becomes enjoyable for them and satisfying for you. You have the confidence, both of you, that you're doing the right thing. The last part on easing into things or starting slowly is to get your child into the habit of goal setting. There are a couple things that they'll say make people successful throughout their lives. One of them is reading. People that read all the time, they are shown to be more successful than people that don't read as much. And the other part is goal setting, getting your child into the habit of goal setting. For those people that set goals, is not so much the rigidity or the structure of setting a goal, it's the intention of setting a goal. So getting your child into the habit of goal setting as you go through things. Hey, we're going to try and finish this book this month. Hey, let's try and get through these chapters of this program that we've chosen. Or let's try and identify how we do this math problem by this point of day, or spend this much each day on whatever activities. You choose the goals that you want to have with your child. Hopefully you negotiate those and you start to work towards those. At the same time, start to test incentive and reward systems. It might be when you get this done, then you can do that. And that can be on a daily routine where you do all these things. Then it's time to go do those other things you want to do. Or it could be on a larger part when you get this whole sequence of work done, then you can go do this big thing. And our child's always negotiating for a small toy or something like that. That might be the thing. If you're not into the material stuff, then you say, well, we'll go have an experience together. And you can figure out what you'd like to do there. The last thing to consider as you start into homeschooling is to hold off on buying a curriculum. You don't need to buy the curriculum just yet because you don't know what you need. And so the first part is to figure out or experiment with what you have around the house. You probably have a general idea about what is needed for your child and what your child likes. Start with those things. And as you start to develop a routine, as you came out of that deschooling or breaking routine, and you develop your new routine, you start to identify, well, these are the things I want to do. And use what you have. You probably already have some, at least coloring paper. You probably have some books. You might have some notebooks, some journaling. Depending on the age range of your child, start with those things first before you buy anything. Also, start using the free resources that are available. Go to the library, right? Check out the online resources. See what you can do to make use of those ones that are available already as you test things out. They may not be at the quality level you want, or they may not be as thorough as you'd like, or you may not have the interaction that you want, but you don't know that until you try them. Because once you do try them, then you can say, oh, I do want a little bit more thoroughness or in-depth area here, or I would like interaction. Then you start reaching out to people that can help you with that or finding the specific resources that can do this. And all the while, and I've talked about it a little bit earlier in the video, is you want to look for the passion that your child has to start to develop and encourage that. And if they find something they like, let them go with it, especially as you begin homeschooling. Because realize that if they say, I love what I'm doing, you're going to have a much more positive experience, and you're going to have the ability to layer in the things that you think make for a fundamental education, or the fundamentals of a quality education. One more point. The last part is, as you begin homeschooling, take a few months with these free resources, with what you have available, to identify the areas where you think you'd like to improve, where you could do better. And at that point, that's when you start looking at what you want to buy. You go out and find those resources, you find the things that specifically fit the need that you have, and then, only then, would I suggest starting to get that curriculum and starting to build up into that program that both your child and you will enjoy as you start on your journey of homeschooling.